All right, negative recruiting is a real thing in college football. Kirby Smart said scoreboard.
Yeah. Got a big old paragraph pulled up.
Go for it.
You want me to just go for it?
Yeah, go for it.
We usually fix that when we show them how many we have drafted and it's silenced. We put Trayvon Walker sacks up there and say he went number 1 overall. We put Devontae Wyatt's up there and say he went in the first round. We put Quay Walker's up there. We put Nolan Smith's up there. We put Jordan Davis's up there. And then they don't say anything.
Look, they got it going right now here at Georgia. And talking about sort of negative recruiting on the trail, that's something, listen, negative recruiting is in the eye of the beholder, first of all. If someone says to you, hey, if you're going to go to Georgia, they're going to wear red and black with silver breeches. Someone can take that as being negative. I don't know. But I know that what you just read off there, is the shutdown for every other argument against Georgia right now, specifically on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, look, when you're going into these kids' living rooms and you're having that conversation with them, you're going to their high school practices and everything, what I imagine is the common goal for almost every single one of these high school kids that's getting recruited to these big-time schools is to make it to the NFL.
Right.
Probably their primary goal over winning a national championship in college,
Probably.
if we're just being honest with ourselves. So when you could point to the board and say, hey, look at our 2021 defense. 13 of those guys are in the NFL.
That is crazy.
And it didn't matter how well they played individually. It obviously it did to an extent. They needed to look good and be talented, but the development at Georgia is where you point to that a lot, and the mentality. I think you get a professional mentality developed in you at Georgia, and that helps you get drafted.
I don't know what I mean. The 16 team didn't have a lot of guys drafted off of it. Now, some of that was because, like, Nick and Sony came back, and you had Lorenzo Carter came back, Devin Bellamy. But even a year later, those guys were not like high-end guys. Sony was, and Nick was too, but the defensive guys. And then all of a sudden, you start letting the Kirby, wouldn't call it a system, you start letting him work. And then the guys are going in the first, they're starting to get first-round guy almost every single year on the defensive line. I mean, that was Georgia's big. You know what led Clemson to national championships and Alabama to national championships? It was not necessarily amazing quarterbacks. It was the combination of a crazy defense, particularly on the line, where, when you had a hard time on offense, your defense was there for you. Georgia basically has that now, man. They can go out and, if they don't score 30, they can still win the game.
Yeah. You'd think those Clemson defensive lines had Dexter Lawrence and Christian
saying.
Wilkins and
Christian Wilkins didn't even hardly play in 15.
Yeah.
Now 16 he did, and that's when they won it. But you get my point.
Yeah. And then Georgia has a similar. And Alabama had it for years, Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne and all of those guys.
Freaks.
You put all of them.
These guys could probably do cartwheels.
And most of those guys, Jonathan Allen had quite a spectacular individual year, but most of those guys are not, putting themselves into the Heisman conversation or breaking any sort of records. But they're getting drafted at a really high level because of how good of players they are. And the other part of the reason why they're getting drafted at a high level is probably because they're interviewing really well, because that's something else that they were helped out with at a program like Georgia.
One issue that you circumvent at Georgia is the accumulation of statistics and numbers is great, but like for Trayvon Walker specifically, and Kirby said this the whole time. He said, hey, look, we're asking him to do a particular thing. We're not asking him to do everything. And that's the difference. When you're playing in the NFL, Trayvon Walker's really good. He's not the number one defensive lineman in the NFL.
No.
But he needs to do what the Jags need him to do exactly. And my suspicion is he does a very good job of that. There were a lot of people questioning that as the number one overall draft pick. He had a pretty solid, first year in Jacksonville.
He made plays that made you nod your head and say, okay, I understand why he was that high of a pick.
Yeah.
Trayvon is kind of a weird example when we're talking about all this, just because
that's probably true.
He may have, had one of the biggest rises of all time over the course of just like a month or two. We're talking about a guy that went from,
I have a story about that.
First of all, you don't know if he's going to come out heading into his junior
Right.
year because
Right.
you're just not sure what that's going to look like.
Right.
And then when it's like, okay, yeah, Trayvon's going to be an NFL draft pick, it was more so like, yeah, Trayvon's going to go, maybe in the second or third round. And then all of a sudden, Trayvon was, yeah, this guy's going to go in the back into the first round. And then all of a sudden, he's getting mocked first overall, like the week or two heading into it, and he finally does.
And Aiden Hutchinson's really good too,
Yes.
by the way.
Yeah.
Check out EcoPoly. This is one of their sets. This is two Adirondack chairs connected.
This comes off though.
This
It's
can
not-
come
yeah.
off if you want, but like I'm just gonna say, if you have a beach place and this would be on the sand, this is really nice. Now it's got a 20-year warranty. As we've talked about, multiple colors. This is completely recycled material, so you're being environmentally friendly. 15% off, free shipping. They're in Dodge County, which is Eastman, not so far from Savannah, Macon, Atlanta. It's not that far a drive. You can go down there and get a better price on this stuff if you're really redoing your backyard. Yes, they are supporting us, but we're not just saying this. This is really nice gear. You're going to want to have it. I want to go back to the story about Trayvon Walker real quick. Trayvon can certainly buy EcoPoly. It's actually not that far from Jacksonville. So if you're watching in Jacksonville, which we have a decent audience down there, it's not that far of a drive to get quality stuff. The Kentucky game weekend of 21.
Okay.
So on background, I'm not going to say who I was with, but needless to say, they were very close to Trayvon Walker. And they had not decided yet as a group if he was going to leave. So that far into the season, Trayvon was not so sure that he would be an NFL player in 6 months or whatever. What was that? October, November, December? Yeah, 6 months.
Something like that.
So, but the truth of the matter was his time at Georgia was actually running out. This is a very complicated and difficult decision for people who are, whether you're talking about the parents, the player, people who love those folks. It's hard to know how to maximize your value. The number one thing it seems like right now at Georgia, or in college football recruiting, is the place to maximize the most is at Georgia right now, particularly if you're a defensive guy. And I have to say, maybe if you're a quarterback, Stetson Bennett certainly maximized, I will say. But I mean, the results speak for themselves. I mean, you're sitting there, you're winning national championships, plural. You are quite possibly going to be a top 100 pick, if not a top 50 pick, or a first round pick,
or first overall pick.
first overall. I mean, Jalen Carter doesn't have a lot of stuff come to light off the field.
Yeah,
He is probably 1 or 2 overall. Now this year should be Caleb Williams, I would think, or Drake May. We'll see.
Yeah, and Caleb Williams.
Walker,
I read
Devontae,
Yeah, I read the other day that Caleb Williams. It might have been something from his dad. Might come back if he doesn't like
his
his number 1 overall situation. Now that's, to me, is a dumb choice. But
you've got that flexibility now with NIL.
And he's probably making way more money than we even know.
We don't know. But the first overall guy would get what, 25 guaranteed?
Depends on the position, but
number 1 overall. No. That's slotted.
Okay.
Yeah, that's slotted. So, he would get. I can't remember who it was this past time. Who was the 1 overall after Trayvon? How do I not know this?
It was Bryce Young.
Oh gosh, yeah. So whatever Bryce Young got, it will tick up slightly depending on certain things. I think that's a very curious thing. There was some discussion about that with Trevor Lawrence in 2021.
Yeah, he would have been the
2021. There was some discussion of, do I really want to go to the Jaguars? To which I'm thinking, no. But
I mean, look at that situation has really started to
right.
turn
Well,
around.
and the other thing is too, there's no income tax in Florida, so there are reasons to go play. There's worse places to be than Jacksonville, like Orlando. So there's worse places to be, but it is a decision those guys are going to have to make. But at Georgia, I mean, Trayvon went to the Jags as well, and he's doing fine.
Yeah. I just think that there are so few people in the world that get even close to that chance, and going to Georgia gets you a lot closer to that. I mean, think about on the roster right now. How many future first round picks do you think that we could just pick off of? the roster right now? You want to try to
Well,
calculate?
I would want to see the roster, but Mims.
Just off the top of our head, Mims, Starks.
Well, Mims, Starks, Bowers, possibly Bullard, although I don't know. Okay?
Yeah, okay, so that's 4.
That's 4, but Bullard may be a jump.
Bullard might be a jump.
But certainly Bowers, certainly Mims,
Bowers,
I would say certainly Starks. That's 3.
Starks.
Now, who am I missing?
Michael Williams? When it's
Definitely
his turn?
Michael Williams. I forgot about him. 4. Smile certainly could
Smile
be.
could
5.
Smile's probably more likely than
Pop.
Dumas Johnson.
Yeah, I would say.
So that's 5 right there.
Yeah.
That we think, and that's without looking at the roster deeply.
Yeah, I mean, Beck could be. Honestly, first round we're talking about?
Look,
not number 1 overall.
That after two, that quarterback race is wide open to be the third quarterback.
Carson Beck could, if he plays to his potential, certainly could be a top 32 pick. Certainly could be, because the position, which has just become chaos lately in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know that the quarterback position is not at its peak right now in the NFL. Now, the peak of it is really, really good. The guys at the top is some of the best we've ever seen at the top. But from top to bottom, the NFL is maybe not as even right now as it has been in years past. And so that is an opportunity for Beck, especially when it's a wide open race after QB2 to be the QB3 on this board coming up.
I don't think so, but I think you're talking about positionally speaking. I mean, Cedric Van Pran, it will depend. I don't think so, but I think Cedric Van Pran should not expect to be up there after the second or third round for sure. He's going to be gone. But
someone's going to pop into our head
because I'd have forgotten about Michael Williams. Yeah. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But
you know, does Nazir Stackhouse play into being a late end first round pick? Does he have a
exactly
Devontae Wyatt type of?
Well, we don't know about the young guys either, too. See.
Well, we don't know about.
Well, I mean, CJ Allen, the linebacker, totally could be a first round draft pick. So this is why I want to see the list. So you're starting to talk about a few, right? I mean, 10 maybe on this roster, which would be spread over 3 years, 3 each, or something like that. Is Lewis Cine type guy out there? I mean, just Malachi Starks. I wish we would have had a roster for this. That'd have been a much better thing. But for Kirby and them to hear, Kirby and them's main. No, it's all right. I think we've got.
I want to see if
Mims. If Mims does not go in the first round, something has happened there. If Mims does not go in the first round, something has happened there. So, I mean, and we don't know what like Gunnar Stockton necessarily would be like. I don't know. But Beck definitely could be. Running backs, probably not.
A guy like Jalen Walker could probably work his way and test his way into that. But there are a lot that we don't know, as I just kind of scroll
obviously
through.
Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is probably the most obvious, one of the group. And some of these guys, I do think C.J. Allen could be. But big men, go to the big men real quick just to.
But these are some younger guys that we just
don't know enough about them. Freeling could be because of the size.
6'7", 310 freshman tackle.
Hughley, man. I don't know. I mean, and like I said with Cedric, it's so hard for me. I just don't know enough about centers at all.
We're talking about just first round though.
Correct.
We've been talking about just first round.
Cedric Van Pran will be a top 100 guy.
4 out of 5 of Georgia's offensive line will be eligible for the draft.
Correct.
And I imagine all 4 of them are going to be drafted.
Cedric will be. Mims will be for sure. Truss and Ratledge will all be. Now, Ratledge may come back. We'll see. I don't know.
I don't know for sure either, but those guys are going to be eligible.
Truss has to go. Truss is a great example of development. Now,
where'd they pluck him from? Rhode Island?
Rhode Island. Dylan went up there. I mean, Xavier Truss was great. I mean, Devin Willock would have been a guy that would have been drafted for sure. Now, drafted is different than, first round. But like Andrew Thomas, Isaiah Wilson,
Broderick Jones.
Broderick. If Mims is not, something's happened strange. If Bowers is not, something's happened strange. Probably with Starks, if something's.
I think Starks is a future top 10 or 15 pick.
I would say Smile London is probably, I wouldn't say
with
something
linebacker position. It's tough
crazy
to predict that.
Wrong, but like There's just so many guys. Like, there's a depth. Did you see LSU Florida State in week 1?
Yes.
That is a great example of we don't have depth. Did you see Clemson Duke in week 1? That is a great example of we don't have the depth that we need. We're getting beat by 21 points by Duke.
That was an all-time disaster, man.
I get it, but like in LSU, particularly that weekend, got tired. When's the last time you saw Georgia tired? Ohio State, maybe. But they dominated the fourth quarter.
I mean, I guess the SEC championship 2 seasons ago was
Yes.
the last time they just kind of looked
Yes.
defeated, and they were defeated that day. It was
And
also the last time they lost.
And that's also the last time they played. That's the last time they played 2 top 3 quarterbacks? Or are they top 2? I can't remember where.
Well, they've played Bryce and CJ since then.
No. Well, what I'm saying is, in the last 30-ish games.
In the last 30-ish games.
Including Mac Jones.
Yeah,
In the last 45-ish games.
Okay.
You know, the guys that have given them the most trouble have either been number one.
Trask, too.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
Number
I'll
one
let you
overall
get there.
draft pick, or what was Stroud?
2.
Okay, so he was 1.
They went
or
1 and
2,
2, man.
And then you have 15 Mac Jones was 10.
He went 15, I think.
Trask, who was a second-round guy,
And a Heisman finalist.
hardly trash, right? So you're going to have to really be good. Baker Mayfield, number what overall?
1.
Probably should rethink that one.
Yeah.
The Browns and their quarterback decisions, generally speaking, are questionable.
Well, they've moved on to another type of situation.
That's questionable,
what
my
I'm gonna
friend.
say.
That's definitely questionable. What's not questionable, making sure you're checking out EcoPoly down below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the website.